If you're building a no-code app, it's probably for two main reasons. Number one, because of the speed. You can build so much faster than learning how to code. And number two, because of the convenience. No-code tools make it so much easier and more accessible for any type of entrepreneur, no matter their background, to build an app. So those speed and convenience factors are massive. Now, that being said, it still does take time to build an app, even if you're building it without coding. That's because when you come into this space, you have to, number one, learn how to use all the tools available to you. Number two, you have to learn all the processes involved. What goes into the development of a custom application aside from just the tools that you're using, because that's a huge component of it. So when a lot of entrepreneurs come into this space because of the speed and the convenience, they also realize that it's going to take a lot longer than they might want. And I'm not talking years of time, but it does take time. You're building a custom product that you want to turn into a business or use to scale your existing business. It's going to take some time. So when a lot of entrepreneurs come into this space, they think, well, maybe I should outsource the development of my MVP, of my minimum viable product. Have someone else build it for me right now. During that time, I'll learn how to use the platform it's built on. And then once they're done, I can take over and then grow and scale and manage the app from there. You might have wondered or thought the same thing too, but there are some things you need to understand and look out for if this is the case, if this is the path that you are taking. So stick around because we're going to dive into those things so you can know what to expect and actually what might be a better option for you. So before we dive in, if you're new around here, my name is Kristen and I'm the co-founder of Coaching No Code Apps. And we help business owners and industry experts build custom apps to either start their app-based businesses or grow their existing businesses, all without coding. So let's dive right in. If you're thinking, well, I'm going to outsource the development of the first version of my app or of my MVP, and then I'm going to learn how to build it or how to manage it or grow it while that's going on and then take over, there are three problems or three obstacles that I want you to be aware of before you head down this path. So number one, and this is a really big one that a lot of entrepreneurs who are new to this space, they just don't really know because you don't know what you don't know, right? And that is that learning how to use a no-code tool does not make you a developer, unfortunately. People spend years and years of their time honing their crafts as they're becoming developers, as they're learning the ins and outs of what it takes to develop an app. Now, with the right processes, you can speed that up dramatically, but just because you know how to use a no-code app building tool, it doesn't mean that you're a developer. So this is what happens. If you outsource the initial development of your app, and then you think to yourself, during that time, I'm going to learn how to use the no-code platform it's built on. We specifically use Bubble. And so for people who we help specifically, they might say, well, I'm going to get someone else to build this on Bubble. I'm going to learn how to use Bubble while they're doing it, and then I'm going to take over. Well, they go into the process of learning how to use Bubble, but then on the other end, they don't know what to do with their app because there's so much more that goes into it beyond just knowing how to use a tool. I use this kind of comparison a lot, but think about this. I could teach you how to use a paintbrush really, really well, literally how to use a paintbrush. But just because you know how to use a paintbrush, it doesn't mean that you can then go on and paint the Mona Lisa. That takes a lot longer. It takes a lot more skill. There's just more that goes into it. Now, again, that's not to say that you can't build your own app, But you have to understand that there is more that goes into it. So you can't just look at, you know, building and launching this successful app as just knowing how to use a tool or knowing how to use a platform. You have to go deeper than that. You have to understand how to think more like a developer, how to approach your development more logically, how to take your app through development cycles. Again, there are ways to speed this up dramatically. You can learn from others who have come before you. You don't have to trial and error your way through this, but it is something you have to understand, because I wouldn't want you to outsource your app and then try to take it over and not be able to, because then you're stuck. All right, so the second big problem is that if you outsource the first version of your app and then you try to take over it afterwards, even if you do understand how to use the tools or the platform it's built on, even if you do understand the development process and all the little nuances and aspects that go into that, you're still going to have a hard time taking over an app. And I'm speaking to this from personal experience. When one person or one developer builds an app and then someone else tries to take it over, even if they are just as skilled as that first developer, they're still going to have a hard time, because every developer has their own styles, their own processes, their own techniques. You can take two different people with the exact same level of skills. One can start an app and then one can try to finish it. And there's still going to be obstacles and friction along the way. And I've seen this happen a number of times. And oftentimes what happens is that second developer, they just prefer to start over with the app so that they can build it using their styles, their techniques, and so on, because it makes more sense to them. Now, the outcome of the app could be exactly the same. The performance, the optimization, the scalability, exactly the same. But two people just have different processes and different preferences in how they build an app. So if you outsource the first version of your app to someone else, and then you step into the development afterwards, this is going to be something that you will face. Now, again, not saying it's not doable, but especially if you're coming into this without having a technical background, without having a lot of experience in this space, you're going to find this as kind of a barrier that's going to keep you from moving forward very quickly. So what might happen is, you'll outsource the first version of your app, you'll learn as much as you can during that time, and then you'll take it back on the other end, and then you're going to have to spend a ton of time learning how it was built so that you can even understand what to do next. So that's something that you really need to be aware of if you're heading down this path. Now, kind of to build on both of those first initial problems, the last biggest problem in heading this route is that your development is just going to take a lot longer. Now, the reason why I really want to emphasize this is because most people who decide to do this in the first place are doing so because they actually want to move faster. They think that this is a way to actually speed up the progress with their app. Now, that might be the case with the initial version, but usually when you get the initial version back, or whether you've built that initial version yourself and you start testing it, immediately you're going to find things that you need to change. Immediately. That's just part of it. And that's really the goal. You want to start getting feedback as quickly as you can so that you can start iterating the app. Now, if you outsource the first version of your app and then you try to take over, you're immediately going to find that changes need to be made. Then you're going to be going up against the first two problems that we talked about, and you're going to find that momentum that you kind of jumped into, this kind of initial forward momentum that you got by outsourcing, it's no longer there. And now it's taking you so long to learn how the app was built, to learn how to iterate it in the first place, to figure out these next steps, that it kind of maybe evens out, at the end of the day, where if you were to have just built that app from the start, you'd be in the same exact place in terms of time frame or speed. So with that being said, this is the other path that I want to talk about: building the first version of your app yourself and then potentially outsourcing on the other end of it. So we're kind of switching it here, flipping the script. Now, this is a path or an option that we have seen a lot of success with. And a lot of clients who we specifically work with, this is what they do, because not everybody wants to build and maintain and manage their app for their app's lifetime. A lot of people who we work with, they want to build their app and they want to maintain and manage and grow it to the point where now they can start building a team around themselves. And now they can start building an in-house development team to manage that, while they can focus more on the business aspects, for example. So this is a path that you could consider instead, because we've found that, even though you're not getting that first version built quickly or more quickly because you're outsourcing it, at the end of the day, you're moving more quickly overall. And again, that speed and that convenience are two massive benefits that you want to be able to take advantage of. So what you can do is learn how to build the first version of your app yourself. So learning the tools, learning the development processes, the development techniques. And when you do that, what that is going to allow you to do is, number one, you're going to understand not only how to build your app, but how your app was built, because you're the one building it. And now what you can do is, when you get to the point where you want to shift your focus, you can bring in a developer and start outsourcing on the other side of that initial version being built. Now, when you do this and you are the one who has built that first version, you're going to find that it's really easy to hire the perfect person to work for you. Now, something that we've seen a lot of people run into when they're not the ones who have built their apps themselves is they try to find someone to work on their app. Maybe they have outsourced that first version. They ran into those problems that we talked about. And so they realize, well, I can't take over. I just need to outsource for the rest, my app for the rest of its lifetime. So they try to hire a developer, but they have a hard time because they don't know how to talk about their needs from a technical standpoint, because they don't have any knowledge of that. They don't know how to really, look for the right skills other than just basic skills that you would look for from anyone. They don't know how to manage those people because they don't even really know how to track their work or how to understand what they're doing or even understand any technical updates they're given. They're kind of just detached from that whole process because they don't know anything about the app. But if you've built the app yourself and then you outsource on the other end of it, on the other end of that first version or minimum viable product, you can hire the right person, you can hire them really easily, and you can manage them long-term really, really easily because you understand everything. You can bring them on board quickly. You can teach them about the app really quickly. It's often a much more advantageous and just more convenient setup. And the convenience is massive here. So the second thing is that, even if you build that first version yourself and then you decide to outsource or bring someone on to help you on the other side of it as the app is now growing, well, you can still go in and make changes or updates on your own if you want to. Now, this is a really big advantage because what we've seen happen with some people who outsource their entire apps is that in order to make any progress at all, even if they want to change a color somewhere, change a logo, change the position of something, they have to get someone else to do it. And that means that they have to rely on someone else's schedule to do it. They have to go through a bunch of back and forth just to convey, one idea of maybe a different positioning of a page or whatever it may be. It's no longer convenient. Things get slow. The backlogs start to grow and so on. But if you've built that first version yourself, and then you're bringing on someone afterwards just to help while it's growing, you can still go in and make changes on your own. You can still go in and update the app. You can push quick fixes if you find little issues. If you're doing user testing and something comes up and something needs to be fixed right away, well, you no longer have to wait until, next week when your developer gets back from vacation for your users to stop experiencing these problems, and on and on and on. It just gives you so much more freedom. And that is something that we've seen kind of unlock doors for entrepreneurs who go this route. Now, the last advantage to doing this that I want to talk about is that, inevitably, if you are hiring someone to come on as you grow your app and help you, inevitably you're going to transition away from that initial person. You're going to bring on a new person. We're talking about the development of your app throughout its lifetime. You can't expect to hire one person or one team and then have them around forever. It's just not realistic. And this is true of any position, any position in any business that you would want to fill. So the problem is with an app, especially if you don't know anything about how it's been built, if you try to transition developers, so you go from one person or one agency to another, we talked about this a little bit already, it can be really hard. It can be hard to teach that new person all about the app and all about how the app was built. And that new person is often just going to want to rebuild the whole thing, which you don't want. You don't want to have to backtrack and rebuild that entire first version. But if you've built the app yourself, if you've built that first version yourself, and then you have someone on board to help you while it grows, well, if you need to change developers, maybe you decide to go in a different direction. Maybe you outgrow that initial developer, maybe they outgrow you, whatever it may be, for whatever reason, when you need to change someone, you can. You don't have to worry about it because you know how your app was built. You can just transition the app over to this new person, or rather you can transition this new person onto your app because you have the knowledge and you have the capability. So really, when you're looking at doing this, when you're looking at potentially outsourcing that first version just so that you can get up and running quickly and then taking over on the other side, if you want to do that for the speed aspect, well, generally you're going to find that it actually takes you a lot longer than you want it to. So you're going to move quickly right at the very beginning, but then you're going to get on the other end and you're going to see lots and lots of frustrating stalls that just compound that development time and essentially just slow down all the progress. But if you flip that around and you build the core of the app yourself, and then you bring someone else on or you outsource certain parts of it, as the app grows, you're going to have a much, much, much easier time, not only moving quickly, but also moving quickly in a much more convenient way. All right, I hope you find that helpful. And if you do want to go this second route, where you're building that first version first so that you can take advantage of all the benefits that come along with that, and you want help with that, reach out and let us know. We take a small group of entrepreneurs through a 12-week minimum viable product mentorship program where we work directly with them that whole time so that they can create a scalable app that they understand and that they can actually grow on the other end. So if you're interested in talking more about that and seeing if we can help you too, you can head to coachingnocodeapps.com/apply to learn more, and we can get the conversation started from there. All right, I hope that was helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.